There is something strangely satisfying about putting on a hakama. At first, it is simply another piece of equipment. You put it on, you tie the himo, you try to make the folds look straight. And then, after a few years of practice, something changes. You stop thinking so much about how to put it on. You simply know when it feels right. And perhaps this is one of the less obvious things about training in Aikido. The hakama eventually becomes part of your sense of movement and part of your body. Today I want to show you not only how I put on my hakama, but also some things I have learned from years of wearing one on the mat. Before you put on the hakama, one thing has to be right: your belt. Think of the belt as a foundation and anchor of the entire hakama. If it sits too high, too low, or unevenly, the hakama will never sit properly. You can adjust the folds and himo for minutes, but the problem is already underneath. A correctly positioned belt creates a stable base and gives the hakama something to rest against. It helps distribute the pressure of the himo and keeps the hakama from shifting during movement. One of the first things beginners often learn is put the hakama here. But there isn't necessarily one universal position that works for everybody. The important thing is that the hakama allows the pelvis and hips to move naturally and to breathe naturally. If the waistband is too high, too low, or pulled excessively tight, you may begin compensating with your posture. And this becomes especially noticeable in movements such as Irimu, Tenkan, Shiko, Ukemi. The hakama should not dictate your movement. Your body should be able to move naturally inside the hakama. This is one reason why simply copying someone else's exact position is not always the best solution. Look at the principle first, then adapt it to your body. Now we come to the himo. This is where many beginners become frustrated. There are many different methods of tying a hakama. Different schools, teachers, and traditions may use slightly different methods. And this is important. There's not necessarily one universal hakama not used throughout all Aikido. My own way of wearing it comes from the tradition I practice in, and particularly from the Temura lineage. So consider this video as one traditional method, not as a declaration that every Aikidoka should tie a hakama exactly the same way. What matters most is stability, comfort, and consistency. The Koshiita is one of the most characteristic parts of the hakama. And for many practitioners, it is simply something that goes on the back. But its position affects how the entire hakama sits around your pelvis. It should feel stable without forcing your lower back into an unnatural position. This is particularly important for people with different body proportions. A hakama that looks perfect on one person may sit completely differently on another. So don't judge the fit only by looking at yourself in the mirror. Stand and walk and turn, bend your knees. Do a few basic Aikido movements. Then ask yourself, can I forget that I'm wearing it? That is a much better test. This is something I learned through experience. When you are new to hakama, it is tempting to think, if I make it really tight, it won't move. And technically that works, but your body doesn't necessarily appreciate it. If the himo is pulled excessively tight, you can create unnecessary tension around the abdomen and pelvis. And Aikido needs space there, and you need to breathe. We want the pelvis to participate in movement. We want to breathe. We want to turn, we want to absorb and redirect forces. So my goal is not make the hakama impossible to move. It is make the hakama stable enough that I don't have to think about it. That is a very different feeling. Now we come to the part that almost every beginner eventually asks about. what do I do with all this extra himo? There are several ways of dealing with the remaining length depending on the tradition. Some practitioners tuck it away in a particular manner. Others use a different finishing method. This is one of those small details where lineage and dojo tradition becomes visible. And honestly, after years of practice, I think this is one of the beautiful things about martial arts. You can travel around the world and recognize the same hakama, but notice small differences in the way people wear it. Those differences tell stories. They tell you where someone learned, who influenced their teacher, and sometimes which tradition they belong to. When you first wear a hakama, you may think, how do I make this look right and feel right? And after a few years, the question changes. You begin asking, how does it feel only? And eventually, you don't really ask either question anymore. Your hands simply know what to do. You can put it on really blindly in the dark. The himo goes where it should. The folds all fall into place. You stand up and you are ready to train. Maybe that is one of the quiet lessons hidden inside something as simple as putting on a hakama. This repetition creates familiarity,